Hello everybody, this is Poco3.art and today we're doing tileables in Zbrush. The biggest complication with doing this in Zbrush is the setup, but as you can see, this is actually repeating on all four cardinal positions, which is really cool, right? And I have prepared a little bit of a cheat sheet in order to be able to have a little bit more structured the different steps. So feel free to take a screenshot of this, right, where we are going to do all the different steps. So this is now in full screen. Step number one that we're going to do, we need to make sure that inside of the preferences, we've got this with enable customize, and I will provide this in, so we're gonna use a little bit of enable customize. After this, we're going to have, inside of the brush subpalette, we're going to have the wrap mode. This is what's gonna enable us to be able to use the wrapping. So it's essentially using the space coordinates on whatever it fits in that space. It's going to do it to every unit of one, because their plane is 2 units, I think. So I think it repeats every 2 units or something like that. That's how it works. So this always has to be to 1, and we're gonna wrap that as a button and put it somewhere. The other 2 buttons, this is something that I haven't seen done anywhere else, and I thought that it's a very cool thing, is to be able to store the camera and select the camera to that perfect plane, so you know how that's repeating. Second step that you need to do is you need to set your documents to make sure that you have a square ratio of 1024, and you've got Pro off. Turn off Pro first, I don't know, and then you set up everything to be 4x4, right? Next, you need to make sure you zoom out. This is so important, right? If you don't zoom out, then later when we frame the plane into place, it's not gonna work at all. So you need to zoom out of the document. Then, and yeah, I'm gonna do this whole thing with you guys. We're gonna use a plane 3D, so you're gonna drag a plane tool. Always make sure that you remember to use the edit button. Then we're going to make this into a polymesh 3D, because otherwise you're not going to be able to sculpt that or do anything with it, right? When you drag the plane, make sure that you hold down shift and you drag the plane as straight as possible. I recommend they use the little man to see what's forward with the face, right? Now, step number 5, when you drag and you rotate with the orbit, you need to make sure that it is like perfectly straight. So anything that looks good like this is not going to work. Do not rotate it. Do not move it. Do not like use the gizmos to do it manually. No, no, no. Don't do it. You need to do this with the rotation with the camera. Place it forward, right? Because with the repetition, with the wrapping, it's not going to work if it sits exactly in those dimensions with that plane, which is by default a unit of 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters. So if you bring this into Maya, it's exactly those dimensions. All right. Then this is where you use frame with F. Then you have to make sure this is not good. You see how you've got like a border with a document? The plane needs to fit exactly to this. Now that's good. It needs to fit perfectly. And last, we are going to then turn on perspective, because otherwise the storing with the camera doesn't work. Then we will use this button to store it, and we're going to call it something like front or something like this. There's a lot of steps, I guess. The last step is, this is going to be like the plane that we're going to use as a reference for the camera, but it's also the camera that we're going to be using for the low poly, this one here. However, we're going to rename them so it's a bit easier. So this is like the bake plane low, or we can call this as well like your camera plane. And then this guy here is going to be the one that we're going to do for this sculpting. And as soon as we're done and we've set up this camera, we save the camera, we don't really need it, but we're going to keep it so we can export it later to use it to bake all the detailed information. So we're going to hide it, and then we're going to sculpt with this one, okay? This is the sculpting plane, right? Last, with this step here, with number 6, we need to go inside of the tool palette, the formation, and then we're gonna go to size and make it 100. This is not necessary, but I think it's really cool that you can maybe save it as a template inside of the Z tools. So you do a save as, and then you save it in there, so you don't have to do all of this again. I have opened this later, and it doesn't save the documents, and it doesn't save the document size, I mean, with 1024, and it doesn't save the camera, so it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's handy, but maybe not. The thing is, whenever you do anything, the reason why we want to make this always visible is because each time that you change the brush, you need to put this back to 1. I think there is a script somewhere that you can do this. I haven't bothered, but if there is a script to make every single brush into wrap mode, feel free to put it in the comments so other people can see it. That would be really cool. So now, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna set up the buttons. I'm gonna pretend I don't even have the buttons in here. So I'm just gonna go inside of config, enable customize. We got the preferences, enable customize. So you click on that first. Now that we've got the enable customize, you need to hold down both Control and Alt together. So holding down Control and Alt together, we're going to put those buttons up. So we're going to go to brush, go to curve, and we're going to drag this wrap mode here on the left. That's where I like to have it, so I can always see it. Next, I'm going to go inside to draw, scroll down all the way down, select camera, and I'm also going to have store camera. Step 2, we're going to do the whole document thing. So we're going to go turn that off, 1024 times 1024, press enter, press resize. It's going to say, are you sure? Yes. If you cannot see the square, you need to go inside the document and maybe change the range a little bit so you can see that a little bit clearer. Then if this is zoom out like this, it's not good. You need to zoom out so you can see the whole thing. This is very important. Okay? Because I'm going to drag the plane now. I'm going to go select in here, plane 3D. I'm going to drag it with shift. If you do it like this, it's going to go all funky. You need to drag it with shift. Then, as soon as you let go, you need to press edit in here in the corner. You press that button. Then you need to clear the canvas because otherwise that guy is going to be annoying, like whatever object you got in there. So you clear the canvas with Control N. All right. Now, if your plane is a little bit weird like this and you press F, it's not going to work. If you're zoomed in with the document like this and you press F, and now you zoom out from the document, you can see it's not going to work. You zoom out, then you straighten the plane so it's nice and straight. You look at the guy here, it's like looking at you. Then once it's straight, then you press F, and now that plane sits exactly with the 2 times 2 centimeters exactly at the plane of view, so you know how the texture is tiling on the borders on both directions. Now that we've got this centered exactly how we want it, I'm going to now use the opportunity to store this camera location exactly how I want it. So whenever I want to access how things are tiling, I press on that button. So I'm going to go turn on perspective view. That's the annoying thing. Okay, so I'm going to go perspective, going to store the camera and call this, you can call it front or whatever, front. So now if I am off to space and I want to see how things are repeating, I can press on that button and it will zoom in and take me to that camera, right? Which is, I think, very handy. Next, I'm going to go here, the subtools, and you can see that with the geometry and everything, this is not a sculptable mesh right now. So if I try to draw anything, it's not even letting me draw, right? So you need to make this into a polymesh 3D. You press on this button here. Now we're going to like duplicate it and make it bigger and rename it. So we're going to go press duplicate, select this one, rename this to be the low poly plane. So low poly, so we just go, just bake plane underscore low. So this is where we're going to bake all the texture information into this plane. This one here, and this one we do not touch, we leave it alone, we don't sculpt, we just let it be. This one here, this is going to be your sculpt plane. So we go sculpt high underscore high. So this is where we're going to do all the details and everything. We're going to do something really cool. And I'm going to stay here with a while. We're going to do something cool together. We're going to do some clips or something like that. So in the high poly here, if I decided to start sculpting this with using the wrap mode on, And I started doing some details, and I went, okay, I'm gonna do it here, I'm gonna do there, I'm gonna just go and keep on doing. It might reach to a point that it's going to be a bit hard to see around the sides there. But at some point, you see how the mesh there, it is starting to break on the sides. So this is not going to tile very well anymore. So if I go back now to normal, right, you're missing information on how things are tiling on the sides. Even if I turn off perspective, it's going to start to break and things need to copy and paste both directions. So you need to make the high poly a little bit bigger, so when it repeats all the way, and then if the vertices go a little bit weird, it doesn't matter because it's going to align well. So if I undo that, so now in order to make this a little bit bigger, I'm zooming out a little bit so I can see what I'm doing here, all the way down to deformation. And size, I'm going to drag that all the way up to 100. That means it's going to be 2 times the size, and I just do it once. I let go. And if I turn on the other plane in here, I can see now that's there, and it's like twice the size. So now if I go back to that sculpt high, and I start to draw anything, it's going to duplicate both sides. If we want more resolution, I recommend that you add the resolution with this off a few times. Cool. And then you can turn that on and then add a bit more. If you've got 1024 times 1024 repeating texture, let's do some maths. In order to, in terms of polygon count and everything, times 1024, you really only need 1,000,000 polys. So that's enough. You might need, if you do one more time, that's fine. But you always start with small numbers. You get the shapes right, and then you go back. If I press on this button now, that's going to take me here how it repeats. And let's have some fun. From here on, this should be enough information for you to how to set it up. From here on, it's me having fun and being creative and showing you, cool, let's do some clips or something like that. So let's go in the power of the internet. There's this thing called the internet. It's great. Now let's look at some clips. Or something like this. Let's look at some clips. Cool. And I'm going to look at something that makes me happy and go, cool, yeah, that looks very interesting as a reference. Why not? So I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to use that same pure ref that I had up earlier. All right. And whenever you start doing things like this, you always need to think first, big shapes, big forms, right? I'm going to use this brush here from RK, which is his awesome, and it just makes it very hard. And you see how now I'm drawing anything and you don't have the wrap anymore. You always have to go back in here, put that to 1, and now the wrap works. Okay. And I'm gonna start drawing those shapes, and I'm looking at this from afar, and I'm gonna put this to actual, and I'm gonna try to get some of those shapes in there. Maybe something like that. And I'm going to have some fun. This is where you put some cool music. Okay. I'm going to do some forms there. Maybe I'm going to do this guy here. I really like how you got some areas that are very flat and some areas that are very deep. So I'm going to try to emulate that. So I'm going to do like a big area there, like something like that. Maybe that's a bit deep. And yeah, because we've got that problem with the brushes not being able to, like, you need to constantly change the wrapping. I recommend that you adhere to just having maybe 4 or 5 brushes. Like if I use smooth, again, holding shift, you need to activate that again. So you need to activate it one more time. So now I'm gonna do that area there. Gonna make this a little bit flat around here. This is only a promise, but my goal is once I have taught how to do this with a repeating texture kind of a thing, the next is to use this with an iron mesh where you can do like bricks or tiles or things like that, and that's also really, really cool to do it that way. All right, cool. I think that's already looking kind of cool. Again, always press this a little bit to see what it looks like here. So here I could maybe make that a little bit bigger, that shape there. And you see how I'm just doing this very low poly. I don't care about quality. I care about big shapes first. I'm going to do damn standard BDS. Again, put that to 1. It's going to take a while to get used to. And I'm going to drag in a smaller resolution a few lines that goes across like this. I'm going to do a few like that. And then just add a bit of wobble. Add a bit of wobble there. Then add a bit of wobble. And you see how not only working with lower resolutions, you get the shapes a lot faster to what you want. But also, like, you're not killing yourself with detail because you know, okay, so most people are going to see your textures at this distance anyways. And if it looks good at this distance, sometimes that's enough. I'm gonna try to flatten some of these areas and some of these surfaces. So I'm just gonna go B. These orb brushes are amazing. I might put a link somewhere on where you can get this. So I'm gonna go orb flatten edges, but you can use flat. So if you go B, F, A, flatten, that's enough. Wrap to 1. And this is a cheat that I like to use. Sometimes I like to use the stroke with a transform in here. It's not stroke. Oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. Picker. Sometimes I like to have the picker with the orientation to a flat, like a flat surface. So then if I'm flattening that area, it's only flattening to that scale. So in here, I'm just going to try to get those areas to flatten there a little bit for a bit of character. Like that, like so. And I think that's very interesting. And yeah, always zoom out and see what this looks like at a distance, right? Because if it doesn't look good from far away, then it's not great. But always go back in here and see what it's looking in here for repetition, stuff like that. I think in terms of resolution, pressing D now once, and now I'm gonna try to make sure it looks good with this much resolution. I'm gonna go in here. I will now. Is it once? Or is it continuous? Continuous, I hope. Gonna start giving a bit more of those shapes. And yeah, reference is king, guys. If you guys don't have, I think 250 is enough, man. Like, do I need any more? Let's do a trillion. Don't know why I turned that off. I need to remember. Maybe I had memory problems or something was bugging out. Not sure. There is a additional step, and I might put it in the descriptions later. It's how to export this out and put it inside of Substance Designer as well, right? So, and the other reason it's good to always go in here and look at how things look at this angle is because eventually, one day, we will, well, when we export this out, things are going to look like this with the normal maps. Let's say that you have a shape or a texture in here that instead of like this, we're going to make this completely flat in this angle here. Then you're not going to be able to see it as a normal map anymore. So you need to have things slightly angled so things are visible in that when you see it as a texture, right? Don't know how to explain that. But also with displacement, it will look a lot better as well when things are being displaced. I feel like pausing the video and then just fast forward later because like a lot of the things that we're doing here. Yeah, I'm having so much fun with this. This is so cool. Like, I wonder how this is going to repeat a bit later. And I'm going to start now using clay tube and try to like make things a little bit more roughy. So it looks like there's a bit of destruction there. That Procreate thing is driving me bananas. So I'm gonna turn that off for a second. Excusez-moi. Oh, thank God. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you just need to be an artist. You know, like this. Cool. Ah. I forgot to activate this. That's the thing is, if you forget to do it, is things are not gonna tile perfectly. So you just have to like, I think if you do it just a few strokes here and there, it might not be super noticeable, but if you do it a lot, then it's gonna be worth going back and fixing that by hand a little bit. Okay. Cool. I will give myself a time to get this done in another 4 minutes. So this is not a 45-minute video. But I still want to make sure that I've got something that looks really nice. So then it's a lot more satisfying when we put this. Okay, cool, why not? And I might just do a few more holes, like another hole here, one more hole there, just make this a little bit holy. Okay. And I want to make some areas a little bit flatter with character. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing with this kind of work is like you always need to think, okay, that looks very repeaty or not. How can I hide it with other things? It is the hardest. There is a trim dynamic smooth borders that someone introduced me that, and I'm in love with it. I cannot live without it if I'm doing rocks. If I'm doing rocks or anything like that, I think it's one of the best brushes ever. If you need to find it, you can find it inside of here in brushes. Trim border, so good. I think I've got a video somewhere that I'm using this. Okay, cool. And I think you get the point. We're doing this. I would like to spend another 4 hours doing this, but we don't have the time to do that. Okay, so let's say that this is amazing. We love this. Okay. And I'm just gonna do very quickly a crumble because that always is very cheap. Just slap that everywhere and you can call it a day and sing a song. I've never thought of using a technique cheap. It's cheap to use this. You do this and then it's done very quickly and then you can go home. You see, you can just it makes everything very rocky. I wonder what happens if you press Alt. I don't think anything happens. But you see, it makes everything look very rigidy and very. There you go. Okay, and yeah, let's pretend that this is done. I would love to spend, you know, another 4 hours doing this. I'm just gonna do a few sharp edges like this and then another one there and just give some areas of like sharpness. I'm just pressing very lightly here for these areas. Cool, just some areas of sharpness. Yeah, and yeah, when you're doing this kind of thing, always have areas of rest and then areas of deepness. If everything is like detailvania, it's also gonna be, it's gonna look bad as well. You need to have some areas of rest and you need to have some areas of like detail, right? But it needs to be balanced. If everything is detail vania, you're doing it wrong, right? I learned that the hard way so many times. Cool. And yeah, and when you have details like this, for example, you can always throw off the person by doing something similar somewhere else, and then you do something else like this, and then they look for this and they go, oh, is it repeating? And they go, oh no, that's not the same. And then when they go here, say, oh, is that the same? No, it's not. And then after that they get lost. So always do little tricks like that. So you've got these 3 holes there, for example, then maybe do 1 or 2 holes there, and then they look for that, they go here, oh, it's very similar, and they go, oh no, wait, but actually, oh, and then you just throw them off. That's a very cool technique to do repetition. I learned that myself, like just do details that are kind of similar along the way, and then it isn't. Like this rock here, for example, maybe you could do another thing that kind of like it's got the same pattern, kind of a thing like this, a little bit, that goes down, the same shape. So when they go here, they look here and they go, oh, you throw them off with repetition, and then they don't see that pattern repeating anymore. I love this. It's 30 minutes in. Cool. So let's now, then we got this fella here. Let's see what it looks like. High poly. If I press front, this is what it's going to export. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go now to our low poly here. Hide this. I did show this twice this week. So like I should know this. Like the back of my hand. I did not even save this once, so that's very naughty of me. So I'm just gonna save this just in case. I'm gonna make a folder. Saving this on the desktop is not a good idea, but I'm just doing this here because convenience. So I'm gonna go Tileable. Cool. Gonna call this. I'm saving it as, you know, a cliff texture. Cool. Just in case it crashes or whatever, I'm gonna go C plugin here. FBX, I'm going to do visible alone with the other one selected. So I'm just gonna have this one alone. And I'm gonna export this. And in here, I'm gonna call this cliff underscore low, right? Because this is like our baking plane. Cool. Next, we're gonna do the high poly here with this one off. Just this one. This is going to take a while, so you better stay in Zbrush. Don't move out or do anything. Just stay in the software. So I'm going to go now. Export this one. And I'm going to call cliff underscore high. Just to maintain that consistency. It's going to take a minute. Cool. Let's export it. This is where now we go into Painter. I'm excited. I always get excited with this part of the process because the excitement is both anxiety and also like, oh, cool, is it gonna work or not? It's a little bit like doing gambling in a weird way. It's like, ooh, is this gonna work? Is this not gonna work? Is this gonna be fine? We don't know. We'll see. And then you get a bit nervous. So let's go Tileable in here, cliff low, open that. Make sure that you have import cameras, auto wrap, and all of this off. Okay. This is where you only have your plane in here, nothing else. It's just your plane that we are baking. We're gonna go to the croissant button. So this button here, the croissant. Then after we press the croissant button, we're gonna activate height. We want to make sure that we have match. We don't need the matchy. We need to have the anti-aliasing to 64. Jesus Christ, that's a lot. 16 should be enough. Let's press the high definition meshes, and we're gonna load in the cliff high. Open. Now, a lot of people get very confused with, okay, how far is enough, right? So you got the front and you got the back. The front is visible, the back isn't, right? The plane is sitting right in the middle of the sandwich. So in here, can you see anything that's red? You need to push the front until you got no more red, looking at this angle perspective. So if you look at this angle in here, and I drop that there, if there's a little bit of red, you push it back out, right? Then I usually use this as a guide to be like, cool, if I've pushed out this much, then anything that's below it, and you go in an angle like this, you go, oh, so that's about the same, plus a little bit more. So I will grab that value, paste that in here, and then maybe put another 2 values in here, like maybe like a 5 in here or 6. And that should be safe enough to have that as a limit. You see that part there? It's gonna need about the same amount, but that's safe now, okay? So now if I press the bake textures, let's see what happens. I go bake selected. You see how there was like a little gap there? It did not go all the way across. So I need to do the back a little bit more. Let's do that much more. Bake selected. There you go. So now it's gone all the way across. That was a happy accident to show you that. Cool. And this is when we can go here, return to this, so we can see now this fully textured. But the problem is, what if we want to be able to see it like this? We want to see it a little bit bigger on all directions. But we also want to be able to see this with tessellation to see, you know, what it looks like. So, how can we do this? I'm going to import in Maya. I'm going to open Maya. I'm going to import. This one? Yep, the low poly. Import that. Cool. Remember that we discussed that this is 2 times 2 centimeters. So I'm going to change the grid options by right-clicking in here. And I'm going to say, cool, grids every 2 units. And I'm going to say 8 units, total this, subdivisions, can be 2, whatever. Press apply. So now we can see how that grid is perfectly sitting in the middle of those grids. What I will do is duplicate it to make it into 9 tiles. So left, right, up and down, and then each diagonal. So we got like 9 pieces in total. So if I grab this, I go duplicate it, move it up once, duplicate it, move it down, duplicate it, move it here. I'm just holding down X so it snaps to that grid perfectly. I love using the grid, and I love, like, if I know the value, it's like, cool, why should I do something weird? So now this is like 9 times. And wherever you texture and you paint, is the brush is going to go exactly to this, right? So now if I go select those guys as they are, and I know that it's a bit high definition, high resolution, the polygon count here, but it doesn't matter. A, it's going to be turned into a texture anyways. We're not going to be using this as a low poly at all. And B, I'm going to show you something so cool in a second with displacement and the height. It's going to blow your mind. So this is where I'm going to go File, Export Selection. I'm going to call this, I'm not going to override it on top. I'm going to call this CliffLow underscore preview. And now this is where I go back in here, and I'm going to go, instead of edit, project configuration, and then go select, preview, open. Okay. And now we can see the whole thing, how it's repeating on all directions. If you want to see this on how it's, and this is where you can now texture or color it or paint it or do whatever you want. So now, in order to see the height, you need to make sure that in your settings in here, which is your channel, you have to make sure that you've got your height in here. Then inside of your shader settings, you also have this on enabled with the displacement and tessellation. And you need to make sure that you have a very specific layer. I'm going to call this layer height with a bucket. After this, we're going to go to the properties. And we only need to have the height activated because we have done the bake this ourselves. We're going to go into textures, type in project, which is like what we have baked. And in here, this is like, if you don't have your height, it's because maybe in the console button, you need to have this on and make it sure that you do it with the height inside of the console. Okay. So now we drag this in here. Cool. So we got the height there. And now if I go back to this guy here, I can go scale and da 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 da. It's interesting how we do not, and that's a bit too much maybe. You will see in some areas it's gonna go a bit funky, right? And this is because there's not enough resolution with our tessellation. So this is where we're gonna go in here and crank it up a little bit. La la la. Just maybe depends on how powerful your graphics card is. Like I can go maximum and not care because I got a super duper graphics card. And this is where I would maybe bring this into Zbrush and go, okay, so how deep is that in here? Can we try to match it as much as possible? So that could go a slightly little bit less perhaps. And there you go. This is now you can texture this thing. And this is a texture, 100% a texture. And this is a tileable as well. You can put this in infinite distances. So Crimson Desert, for example, is huge with this kind of texturing method with everything and everywhere. They just use tessellation everywhere. It's insane. And just as a demonstration, you know, I can just go in here and start texturing it. So I can just go, just give it a base, make this a little bit less too rough. I don't think this needs to be too shiny. It could be something like this, for example. And now I can maybe just go, cool, I want anything in the cracks to be a little bit dirty to increase the roughness. Something that's got like a dirty orange kind of color like this. And be like, you know what, anything that is affected in the ambient occlusion kind of area. There you go, we can use a dirt filter in here. Then it's got this, right? So anything that's dirty, we're gonna make it a little bit rougher. But then, for example, I want to make anything in the borders a little bit shinier and a bit wider. You can see this in a lot of cliffs and mountains. You need to be super subtle with this because if not, it's gonna look a bit weird. So I'll go, okay, anything that's in the borders, I want that to be a little bit wider. Then you press the want generator. Let's see if there is a... I don't know if metal edgeware is the one that I want. I just want edgeware alone. I remember, so this is where you can be lazy and go in here inside of the smart masks. And then we can go, not concrete edges. Let's see if there is something with edge in here. Oh, there's a few. You still, there you go, stone cracks. Let's put that in there. Let's see what happens. This is where you need to tune it down. So you need to go in here maybe and go, cool. This is going to be a, it's going to be an overlay kind of effect. The overlay was a bit too subtle screen, but I'm going to put this value to very small. It's just barely it. And I might go in there and change it up. And you just keep on doing things, right? Like this is like super basic. I've only spent, yeah, like 20 minutes doing this. Something really quick as a demonstration. But it's cool. Yeah, and you can see here that this is that hole. That hole is so obvious now. It's so funny. But no, it's so cool that I can still slap something together so quickly and call it a day. This is awesome. Anyways, I hope you have enjoyed this. All right. I hope you have learned from this. I will release wherever that PureRef is with that stuff. I will put this in Patreon without these images. I'll put this in Patreon somewhere so you can look at this as you're watching the video. I know it's a lot of steps. And yeah, I hope I can see you guys soon. Okay, goodbye.